NRL Fantasy with the casual athlete. The bye rounds are over and the fun is just getting started. Welcome back, guys. Longy and Biz here with our buy of the week, and then we're going to tear right in. First up, Isaiah Yeo, 749K, priced at a 56. His break even is 60. Biz, how keen are you on this guy?
Right, it's about time I got him back in my side. He's lovely in terms of pricing. You're getting a 60-plus average player, and better than usual than previous years. Panthers can't afford to rest him too far down the stretch, just hanging on to the top 8 spots there. So Isaiah probably going to be one of the best players in fantasy down the stretch. Available at 749K. Reasonable break even this week, which I think he'll get. And, backing up from Origin in round 13 earlier this year, he did play bulk minutes. I think he played 73 odd minutes. So I think he's a good shout for this week. I think he's going to be a very popular buy if he makes it through Origin unscathed. And he's one I'm watching very closely.
Yeah, man, he is pure value. So 65 average last year. If you take out that one outlier game, he's been in the 60s this year as well. Bit of a discount, which is surprising to say, but the Origin period was friendly to him. So, yeah, Isaiah Yeo is one of those guys you definitely want to get in. And he's not carrying any injuries, never seems to carry any injuries. And that hasn't changed here. So as long as he gets through Origin, he's a banging option. If you want to get an Origin player this week too, I think we'll talk about this as we go through these guys, but you want to target those guys who usually back up well or don't play as many minutes in Origin or, just aren't looking crippled in an Origin game. So looking at guys like Payne Haas this week, for example, I'd be steering towards Yo instead, looking at Payne Haas in the future. I say that he's probably going to score 100 now, but if you don't have him,
last time.
yeah, look, he stayed in my team the whole way through, but
Yeah.
if you don't have him at this stage, he's in doubt for Origin. Like I say that as we're approaching Origin in 24 hours, but you just want to, build a little caution in, buy him in round 20 or round 21 because he does have that buy in round 22. So Isaiah Yeo, banging option here, and Nathan Cleary's the next man up as well. What's your thoughts here on timing for Cleary, Biz?
Look, I think you have to get him in ASAP, and he's shown that he's backing up this year, other than the round 16 planned rest, which was announced 2 months before. Look, Cleary is by far and away the best fantasy half this year, and he's not even at his best, right? So he is hogging the kick meters. He's kicking for about 600 plus a game. The Panthers are on their way up over the last month or so, and you're getting him at a 900K price, which is really $1 million player in fantasy, right? And there's no one really close to him behind. Like, I think, you've seen the drop-off of Hines this year. You've seen the rise of Katoa, but Katoa is still averaging in the high 50s, whereas when I'm playing Nathan Cleary, I'm confident of a 70-plus most weeks. I think he's a must-have. He's definitely a great captaincy option most weeks. And this week, he's going to be a popular vice-captain option. I think Terrell May will be a very popular captain option once again. But like you said with Payne Haas, he's always carrying the niggling injury and he's scaring coaches. But he usually does come out and have a huge score after Origin. But I think Cleary is a must get. And at 901K, I'm getting him in this week. I think he's playing 80 minutes. It's not like previous years where Penrith are coasting to a top 2 finish. They're fighting for life here, and they don't have the backup halves capable of, carving up when he's gone. Like last few years, they've had Luai to take up the slack, but if Cleary's not there, who are the halves like Snyder and Talangi, Jack Cole? It's not a great backup halves situation. So I'm confident with Cleary this week. I have no doubts he'll play. Touchwood, nothing scrupulous coming out of Origin, but I think he's a great shout for this week. And both Yo and Cleary are the people you want for the run home this year.
I think too, when you look at Nathan Cleary compared to Isaiah Yeo, I think Isaiah Yeo is extreme value unless you're captaining Cleary. But in the middle forward spot, most of us have a bit of depth there. Most of us are fielding, Payne Haas, we're fielding Terrell May, guys like Adam Fanua-Blake in that position, Aaron Clark, whoever it is there. And there's other options at the middle forward spot as well. So buying Yo this week in a week where we only have 13 players probably doesn't upgrade your team as much. Whereas I've seen fantasy sides that were fielding, guys like King Tongia, guys like Latu Fainu, Nico Hines, players in that sort of league. And sorry,
you rattled up my whole team just then.
Well, mate, if you bring in Cleary, like we talk about a 60-plus average for Yo, let me read you Cleary's last 5 scores. 97, 75, 73, 64, 79. So he's gone below 73 once in the last 5 games. And the games I've excluded were a 56, a 93, a 53, a 71. Like, it doesn't get any worse. He just doesn't go below 50 ever. In fact, outside that injury affected game, he hasn't gone below 50. And if you took that out of the equation, he'd be at that 70 average this year. So the more I think about it, the more I'm talking myself into just rushing Nathan Cleary in this week. But we'll have to see how Origin goes. That's the big thing. You got to watch for that. If he comes through nice and clear and he's going to play, it's tough, right? Because Parramatta plays so late against the Panthers. It's 4 p.m. on Sunday. They're named on the extended bench. That's the bit that I find hard. Like, I think you almost want to try and keep yourself flexible that you could buy Yo or Cleary potentially and sub them in, but then you're relying on a couple of cheeky loopholes. It's very, very tricky. So look, keep an eye on the news. We're going to post a video on Thursday as well, reviewing Origin, but both of those guys are good options. Then it
Yeah,
gets a bit less
we've hyped
weird.
them up. We've hyped them up, but just like I said, just wait till after Origin before firmly bringing them in because, like you said, they play late and they're on the extended bench. So there's no guarantees they'll play, but I'm fairly confident.
Yeah, we hope so. Then rolling through, we've got some interesting options at the wing fullback spot. So Karaz and Tedesco are here. There's obviously Latrell Mitchell coming to the equation next week. Is that what you're thinking about there? I saw a little look from you, mate. Are you thinking just don't waste your time on these boys, wait for Latrell, or
No,
jump
no.
to Jaden
I was
Campbell?
thinking. I was thinking totally different. I was reflecting on my depression that my centers for last week were Carraz, Lawson, and Jack Bird.
Oh,
You
the
know,
third
that
one.
the third one was the worst, but the two centers I was expecting an 18 didn't make it to 18, and then the third one I brought in, I got locked in, man. It's just depressing. I'm just going to talk depressed for the rest of this podcast, man, because that's a hard pill to swallow. And Jack Bird on the anyway, I can't get ahead
Yeah,
of
we were
myself. But
talking about mate, we were talking
Karaz,
about karaoke before. Maybe you
yeah,
could
no,
sing a sad song.
I will. I'll. If you're here at the hour mark, I'll consider it.
Then we
Jacob
get to Jack
Karaz.
Bird.
I think, look, it's funny because we talked about Karaz versus Nwanganita-Wase a couple of weeks ago, and we were firmly on Karaz. Well, then Karaz got picked as 18th man, and Nwanganita-Wase had like 78 points last week. It's fantasy can be cruel, but look, I think Karaz is still a great option, dual position, and having Karaz available in the wing fullback and centers has saved my life this week because I needed a wing fullback. So that's great utility for the run home when there's going to be injuries and whatnot. I think Bulldogs have had a bit of a slump the last couple of weeks, but I think over the long run, they'll be a much better team than we saw in the first half of the season as Galvin picks up where he should. It does take time to get acclimatized to a new team, so don't worry. I think Galvin will be a great buy for the Dogs, and it should unlock their attack even further. I think Kraz, look, we saw his last game against the Panthers. It was like an 8-6 affair in the rain. He still managed to score 47 points without a try, and that's what I'm loving from him this year. I think he's got great base stats. He's 4 or 5 offloads on average to go with 150 to 200 meters a game, and he's a tackle buster. At 703K, I think he's a great value still. So, yeah, get him in your team. I wasn't a believer at the start of the year, but I'm a believer now. Maybe it's just copium, but I think he'll have a big game this week.
No, I'm with you there completely. You look at the fixtures as well, because this is the bit that's really pulling me across. You've got no buys upcoming for Karaz. You have a next 4 of Cowboys, Dragons, Manly, and Tigers. All teams that leak on the edges. More likely to be shootouts there. So yeah, I look at Karaz and I haven't been super keen on Karaz. The origin risk steered me away, and that's where I've sort of been, keeping an arm's length. But now I look at him, no buys. He gets a rest because he's not playing origin as well. I think he was carrying a few niggles, so that's actually great news as well. And he just becomes this great option there. But then Latrell is just a bit more expensive, but Latrell has that buy in round 26, and that burns me because let's say there's a 5 point difference between their averages, right? Even then, the buy in round 26, a week where we're going to struggle, is probably going to cost me 50 points if I don't have Karaz. So I don't know. That's where I'm tossing it up. And I just think the best ability is availability at this stage. And I think Karaz is going to be really good for the run home. Tedesco's in the same boat, by the way, too. Not as sexy as a Latrell Mitchell, but Dragons this week, and he's an Iron Man, always plays. Would you consider him if you haven't got him already?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you wanted Teddy, you wanted him last week, right? So you would have
Yeah.
got that round 18 coverage. So I think if you skip Teddy last week, it just means you don't see him as the top 3 wing fullback for the run home. So logically, in that regard, think you got to stick to. I mean, I don't think he did anything last week that would have changed your mind on whether he's a final keeper or not at the wing fullback spot. So Teddy, for me personally, I will be skipping, but I think he's still a great price. I do think I will say, even though I'm not on Teddy myself or not that interested in Teddy, that I think Roosters are primed for a very big run. I think Sam Walker back this week, touch wood, he actually gets onto the field. I think the Roosters are aiming up at the right part of the season. And so all these Roosters players with attacking upside, I think, get a bump. And Teddy's obviously one of them. So, all these Roosters attacking players, I think, are good options on the way home. I just already have Latrell sitting there for me. And so Drinkwater, he's spotty. He's on and off. So, and then Jaden Campbell as well. I just think I don't see Teddy fitting in my top three fullbacks. So I'll be using that 700K elsewhere.
Yeah, I will mention Campbell too. I didn't include him in this because I feel like most of us kind of have him, and we weren't holding off on buying him at this stage. So, yeah, Campbell's a great option too. I worry a bit about this Broncos matchup. They got absolutely pounded by the Broncos last time, and Campbell didn't score very well. He's got an 80-point break even too. So, if you are not a Campbell owner and you don't need to get the wing fullback this week, buying next week is a really appetizing option, and I'm pretty jealous that you're going to get Jaden Campbell for 650K. So look, all good options there. If you can hold off, maybe that's the option. But personally, I'm the more I think about it, the more I'm leaning into Jacob Kiraz as the option here, is that keeper and giving me that dual position flexibility as well. So it's an open field. It really is an open field. My advice to everyone at home is just have a look at the fixtures for these guys, have a look at the team that they're playing for, and have a think about how this run is going to be for them. Because the later we get into the year, the more team performance plays into it, and the more, if a team is falling off, they start to rest guys. They're not going to push guys through injury, that sort of thing. Whereas if a team is fighting for a final spot or fighting for a top 4 spot, there are all cylinders firing. So that's what you want to look for there. And then Bo Firma's the last one here, and this one's a pretty straightforward one, but I wanted to mention him just because I think he's been a bit forgotten here. So 697K, if you need a center, actually, I'm going to throw this to you, Biz. Bo Firma at 697K or Herbie Farmworth in the 800s there, with the knowledge that Herbie Farmworth is missing Cody Nikorima for an extended period and Jack Bostock for an extended period.
Oh, man, I saw, look, logic will say both of them all, right? 80 minutes on the edge, 700K. But Herbie is a different specimen, man. He's like the third or fourth highest average in fantasy as a pure center, 64 points a game or something. Last 5 average of 70 odd. I guess some ridiculous numbers. He's not even relying on tries to get these scores. Like he had 8 games with a try, but the last few weeks, he's just racking up points in every category except goals and kick meters. Like he is definitely by far and away the best fantasy center we've ever seen. I'm not talking about guys who play in your fullback or edge. I'm talking about actual centers. And the best was probably Dane Gagai before him. So, look, I'm still going. That's a long way of saying I ain't skipping that. Like, I ain't anti-potting Herbie. He is so good. He can give you. It's a captaincy option most weeks. Like, I could vice captain him this week. Hell, I could even captain him this week and feel reasonably comfortable. I'm just not messing with a guy who's averaging 60 plus in the centers. I think he's a must-have. And look, you could buy both for more and come out on top at the end of the year. I'm not saying that's not possible, but just it is hard to watch someone like Herbie rack up 6-7 points per run. And Dolphins are getting hot. They've been good. They've been really, really good. I know Nikorima will hurt them, but Sean O'Sullivan isn't bad. So, look, yeah, I'm still buying both for more at 697K, but it's behind for Farnworth and it's behind Lucas. So that's my answer to your question.
See, I'll come in with a bit of a counter here. So actually, in the pros column, last 7 scores for Herbie: 70, 68, 55, 69, 99, 70, 66. So that's one game below 60, which was a 55, which is just absurd. He's had one game below 50 the whole of this year. It was a 48-point game. So again, that's fine. But the thing I worry about a bit here is if you look at rounds 7 onwards, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive games of tries and 8 of the last 10. Prior to that, he had 1 try in the first 6 games, and he didn't crack 60 in all but one of those games. So my thoughts here are just, if you're not captaining Herbie, he's 800K plus. I don't know. I own Herbie, and I'm never going to sell Herbie, right? So I'm more just thinking if I didn't have Herbie and I didn't have Bo Firma, I'd probably go for Bo Firma at this stage just to save the money there. And I think Cody Nicarima, like watching Dolphins games, Cody has been opening them up. Like Cody has been feeding Herbie great ball. He's still going to pump out that high 50s average, but I think it drops down about 5 points without Cody Nicarima. And if you're not captaining him, it becomes about the aggregate and the value. So if you're a team that doesn't have heaps of cash to spare, you start playing a bit of money ball and you jump on Bo instead for 150K less.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then also it's a bit of a pot, right? So, Bo's been churning along pretty well. Like his last five
Yeah.
scores are 67, 55, 59, 53, and 56. So no scores below 53, and he's priced at 52. So he's still a value proposition. Also covers that edge spot. And look, I don't disagree one bit. Like I personally couldn't go against Herbie the way he's playing this year. But like I started the argument, logic would say Bo for more is a better buy at his price and scoring profile right now because he's 150K cheaper, but he's also dishing out a 56 average this year. So his average is only about 6-7 points less than Herbie, who's on an historic run. So Herbie has to keep up the historic run to maintain that price differential. And, I'm not saying he can't. And yeah, Nicarima is a big loss, but I think, look, it's a hard decision. But I think if you're behind, you're low on trade, you're low on cash, I think you can go Bo without if Herbie goes out and scores 99 every week for the next 5 weeks, you just say, so be it. I made the smart choice, but it didn't play out I went the high probability choice. Sometimes you go the high probability choice and it doesn't work out, and that's okay. You made the smart decision. So I agree with what you said.
Yeah, I guess the case is maybe they score similar. That's the key there. Like I don't think Bo's going to outscore for Herbie. The risk with him though is he does move to center sometimes, and we see Jalen DeGroot on the wing this week, so they're testing the depth there. That's the one thing you got to watch out for. You got big man himself, Talon De Silva. He's made the move to Parramatta. A great move from a great man. And looking at Talon De Silva, 230K here. That break even, just got to adjust that. That break even is actually a lot higher. It's about a 40, 44 there. So he's got a high break even at the moment. So you don't have to rush him in this week. But at that 230K price point, he's a very effective cash out. He averages about 46 in reserve grade across it's about 75 minutes. And at Parramatta, as much as he's playing off the bench this week, I'm expecting him to grow into a 40 to 50-minute role at hooker.
Yeah, I think, look, one with the break even, I'm very confused because the NRL fantasy coach has 46 and then Footy Statistics has 13. So who knows? It's somewhere in between.
It's 46. I'll look at the scores. It definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's strange. But I think Talon De Silva is Longy. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. Like, we'd love him at Para. Like, we've had since Reed left, we haven't had a great hooker. Obviously Riley Smith's playing really well this year, but Lussick isn't the answer for the Eels. He's not on the long term plans. He's just there to maybe absorb a few minutes at the start of the game and ease Talon De Silva in. I think going forward, Talon will be the starting hooker and play about 50 minutes. Look, he's not going to be a 50 average guy, and that's fine. He's a base price. What you're looking for him is just take all the cash off the table, and if you really need to play him, hopefully you get a 30-40 in any given week. I do like the attacking profile and the upside. I think even in 50 minutes, he could have some boom games. And I think he's a great fit for Parramatta. So he'll be very highly looked at this week. And the best thing about this 46 break-even is, if that is truly the break-even, is you could wait a week and see the rolls. He might just be eased in this week and score you 25 or 30. And then pick him up next week when he goes into the starting spot. The best thing about this week in Talon De Silva is you only need 13 players this week. So assuming most people have a hooker this week, if not, I think it's a good option. If you've got a hooker this week, I'm happy to wait a week. But I think he's the cheapie of the week this week, and he's probably going to be the cheapie of the week next week as well. So it's well timed for us because a lot of people are going to look to get those Yos. They're going to look to get the Kiraz and Tedescos and the Prestons or whatnot. And to get the cash to do it, you're going to have to move those 400K players. Like a King Togia to a Talon De Silva type makes a lot of sense. You pocket 150K and you're getting a better scorer potentially and someone who can sit at the end of your bench. So, Longy, are you going straight onto him this week?
If I make 3 trades, I will definitely do it. I got a bit of cash in the bank, so because I went Couchman to Fiketti last week. But if I make 3 trades, then I definitely need to downgrade to someone. And it was De Silva versus Tamari Martin. So, it's going to be De Silva because Tamari Martin wasn't picked. Tanner Boyd was picked. Career 47 average, priced at 500K. Not really going to be discussed today. But yeah, De Silva, you just need a cash out. It's a cash out that you can maybe score on your bench some weeks. You're not going to score him this week, but yeah, it's super, super straightforward. Then the rest of the list here, we'll fly through these guys and then jump to the pods because really De Silva's the one you want to go for. Fletcher Hunt is an interesting option though. So obviously Fletcher Sharp is out for a while. Got Kalen Ponga out for a while too. Long period of time. Now Fletcher Hunt steps into that fullback spot at Newcastle, which has been good for fantasy, but he's one of those career 25 to 30 average scorers in reserve grade. Hasn't been a good scorer so far. Has played, I think it's half a dozen games now, and he's risen 2K. So if you gave him, 100 years, he might get to 400K for you and then be worth a cash out. But you're probably not going to be, you're not going to be starting him. But if you're a team that needs multiple cash outs to make things work, the job security is pretty good. And like in real life, by the way, he's a pretty good player. He's going to have a few days where he pops off. He's just not a fantasy guy, though. That's sort of how I see it. So I feel like he's a bit like Jed Stewart. You're not going to want to use these guys. Whereas Talon De Silva has some chops about him and some potential for fantasy. Fletcher Hunt probably doesn't. But if you want to cash out, you want a guy who's going to play this week at wing fullback. Maybe you want to save your wing fullback trade for Latrell next week. I don't know what your deal is. Fletcher Hunt's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I think the things with Talon De Silva and Fletcher Hunt is you don't want to ever really play them, right? Like you want them to sit there on your emergencies, and if all goes well, you play them max once for the rest of the year. So in that regard, I don't mind Fletcher Hunt because, like you said, the job security is good. You'll get a pretty much a maximum cash out of him, and in the case you play him, hopefully he just gives you 25 to 30 to plug a week. So I don't hate it. I think the argument has changed from, for example, Jed Stewart a couple of weeks ago, where you probably needed to play him a few times. Whereas these guys, you don't want to play them at all. You just want the cash and just literally, as the name suggests, emergency. These are emergency players, only break glass in case of emergency type. So I like De Silva by far. Like I think most people will be buying Talon De Silva. I think Fletcher Hunt's very optional. Like if you really need the cash and you want that wing fullback depth, then he's not the worst option. But I think as we run down this list, look, I actually think for 40K more, Dan Zazniak is actually a better option, to be honest, just because that guy can. Like, I know I'm skipping ahead here, but if you're going to cash down for a wing fullback at the 230, 270K mark, like we've seen Dallin can have some big games in a very good Warriors team, right? So I don't know how much they'll be downgraded with Metcalf going down to Tanner Boyd. I think Tanner Boyd's a solid player, but Metcalf was having a career Dally M style season, right? So that's probably a big downgrade to the Warriors. But Dallin has shown that regardless of how the Warriors play, he can have big games. He's a great finisher. He can score 50, 60, 70 in any given week. And maybe that, as an emergency player, is more attractive than a steady 25, 40K more. So I personally think if I was to do a cash out, unless I really needed that 39K, I would just go Dallin myself. But I don't know, Longy. Either of these in your plans, I feel like you're pretty well stocked at wing fullback and you're not really looking at either of these guys.
Nah, they're not in my plans at all. So I got Latu Fino a while back, and he was the other sort of cash out that I was planning to keep. He's risen 80K in 2 weeks, so that one's maybe he's going to be one that's worth cashing out later on. But no, I would go base myself. So I'd go Fletcher Hunt, playing at fullback. We've seen Knights fullbacks with pace pop off every now and then, just randomly. Like Armstrong, we saw him come in. So I think Hunt's got a bit more of it going on. And DWZ, I don't know, Tigers this week though. Like, if I was buying one to play this week, God, I'd be feeling bad about my team, but I'd probably be going DWZ at that point. So yeah, desperation stations, like you said. If you really want one of those guys, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel there. I think if you wanted to stretch a bit and you went to Tyrone Munro instead, South Sydney have some potential to get hot at the end, but obviously he doesn't play this week. Now, Thomas McKaylee, I just wanted to mention him because we were talking about him so much in the preseason last year. And he came out and he scored like 45 points in 20 minutes. Like, it was just a ridiculous PPM game this week. They've now named Ruben Cotter on the edge back row spot. It's the total wrong time of year to buy Thomas McKaylee, but there is a chance that in the most irrelevant period of the year, he will say F you to fantasy coaches and just pump his way up to 500K. I could see it happening. I don't think it's going to, but if it does, I just want it on record that we said it was going to happen and we knew this pain was coming. Biz, do you think it's going to happen? Like Cotter on the edge? Does it mean McKaylee time, or what are your thoughts?
No, I think they really see McKaylee as an impact player. We saw this last year too. He has elite PPM coming off that bench spot. But even when he started at lock for a couple of games last year, I remember he only played 30 minutes. So I just don't think they see him as a big minute guy. I think he's a guy that gets on there. It's like bust tackles, throw some offloads, and hope for the best. He's not even base price. Like you're not even getting. You're leaving almost 100K on the table by getting a McKaylee over a Hunt or a De Silva. So I'm happily skipping him, but yeah, he could have a few boom games and get to 450, 500K for sure. But I think, look, you're not picking him at this point of year. I mean,
Yeah.
5 weeks ago would have been ideal for the Cowboys' buy schedule, but now, pass.
Yeah, it's too late. And then Oblix Tawa is the last one here. 237K. He's played 2 games for the Dolphins. He's a prop. He comes off the bench. He started one of those games as well. I think he passes the eye test. I think he looks good. Now, he's a great option here too because you can plug him into your mid. Oh, no, wait, he's a center in fantasy. So this random prop that plays off the bench for the Dolphins is a center in fantasy. He probably won't get enough starts to get dual position unless they want to correct it. But yeah, this one's pretty goofy. So look, again, if you want to cash out and you want a center for some reason, I don't know why you'd want a center as opposed to other positions, but if the Dolphins keep getting injuries, he's a guy who probably does absorb a few minutes. So just wanted to mention him at 237K. Any comments on Cheapies here, Biz, before we tear into the pot of the week, who we're most excited about?
Nah, I think Talon De Silva's an easy one, and the rest are very optional. I think I wouldn't look at anyone outside of Silva, Hunt, or DWZ, but I'm ready to go into the pods.
All right, let's go. Pot of the week. Got big bad Connor Watson, and I have been frothing. I've been frothing to get Connor Watson to my fantasy side. 666K, he's priced at a 50, pumps out a 58 average playing at hooker, and he's only played 2 of the last 7 games for the Roosters. Now, you might say, oh, well, he's been in Origin camp. He's been playing Origin, bloody 20 minutes a game. The man is fresh, ready to fire, and he's in a Roosters side that is getting Reece Robson at the end of the year, so you know he's going to be putting his best foot forward down the stretch. I'm pumped about this. I think he's an absolute monster for the run home. I think even if you have Aaron Clark, even if you have other guys, he is hooker number 2 and he covers mid. You just can't ignore him.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's straight into my side this week. I think he's going to play 20, 30 minutes in Origin. And look, I don't have a second hooker. So this is perfect for me. This is exactly, it fits the team needs. And I think he could end up as the number one hooker to end the year, right? So, who are we talking about in that conversation? Aaron Clark. I think Aaron Clark and Connor Watson will score similarly to end the year. I think high 50s, low 60s average. And then it's a huge drop off because the next guys like Harry Grant, Marshall King, Damien Cook, they all seem low 50s guys. So I think you definitely want to end the year with a combination of Clark and Watson. And at 666K, it's as good as it gets. Very friendly matchup this week. I think he'll play close to 80 minutes given his Origin workload. And like you said, fresh into a Roosters team who are primed for a run. I think he's you had Yo as the must buy this week. I think Connor Watson is very close to that schedule, or to being in that spot. So he's in my team this week if he gets through Origin. I think I've said that about 5 guys already. I don't want to be called out for this in the comments, but Connor Watson is my number 1. So there you go.
Someone will tell you. I'm with you there, by the way. He's actually my must buy of the week, but he's a pod. Like I was mentioning him and other guys, and I was sort of testing the field. A lot of people aren't looking at Connor Watson. So I figured he's got to be the pod of the week. Isaiah Yeo to be the buy of the week. Because really, the rest of these guys, we'll talk about them, but I think they have a lot of conditions and a lot of timing conditions and ways that you have to make these acquisitions. So Connor Watson, basically, no matter what happens in Origin, is coming into my side. Like when lockout ended, I went Jazz Tavanga to Connor Watson instantly. And I love Jazz. Maybe next week I'll tape the head up in honor of Jazz Tavanga because he was our king through the Origin period. But it's time to go to Connor Watson at a discount as well. Just this one's such a no-brainer. Now, one of his teammates here, Gus Crichton, 603K, hasn't had great form in fantasy recently. He's my tip for the man of the match in our Origin, by the way. So if people are watching this after Origin and I was wrong, don't remind me. But if I was right, leave a comment. Let me know. So for Gus Crichton, though, he's a guy who can average that 60 points. And we saw it at the start of the year. He got hot. The other thing you throw in here is Sam Walker comes back into the team. replacing Sandon Smith on that edge. Now, we've seen Sam Walker feed Gus Crichton. We've seen him feed him onto, 60, 62, 63 point averages and runs where he pumps out 70 plus for fun. Whereas Sandon Smith, I'm a big Sandon Smith fan, but he's more a go himself guy, more a running six there. So it doesn't really get as much out of his outside men. So I think Gus Crichton is primed as a cheaper option there. And as much as you don't need the edge forward most of the time, because you've got a few guys there, if you can get Gus Crichton and plug him into your bench at 603K, you're doing very well.
Yeah, look, this is a player that I'm really heavily considering this week, and the reason for that is, look, we talked about Preston last week as the buy of the week. He had a shocker. I look,
Hey, wait, sorry. No, we had Preston's the buy of the week before when he scored
okay,
60.
perfect. That's
Last
right.
week,
Yes,
our
that's
pod of the
right.
week was Noani Tuase, who scored
Yeah,
80.
yeah, true.
And Tristan Hope was our cheapie of the week for 60.
That's
So
right. Oh, we
don't
nailed all of
discredit.
those. Yeah.
Anyone who
Okay.
gets an
So
animation pumps out a big score. That's how it
that's
works.
true. That's true. Look, yeah. Look, I think as I was saying, look, Preston is the obvious one. With we talked about the Bulldogs' next 4 games, but if everyone's on Preston and you're trying to make ground, like you're not going to make ground doing that. Is a guy who's priced at 603K, who comes off a 60 odd average last year. Sam Walker, I think, actually truly makes a big difference to Angus. Right? I think he gets a lot more ball, a lot more focus. Sandon Smith was really the second half for most of this season, whereas Sam Walker is going to be the dominant half in my view, and I think Angus is getting a lot more ball. Priced at 45, last 2 scores of 50 and 63. So look, it's not a surefire hit. We've seen some seasons where Angus is a bit quieter, but I'm looking at his base stats this year: 30 tackles, 127 meters, 2 offloads a game, 3 tackle breaks, 3 missed tackles. Like, it's not that different to last year, but the biggest difference is 0.1 tries a game this year versus 0.6 last year. So I think if I read out the Roosters' next few games, Dragons, great matchup, Sharks, great matchup, Storm, so and so, but then he's got Manly, Dolphins. I think he could have a pretty good run home. And maybe that's just me getting excited about having someone like Angus as a pod. But it is hard to look past a Preston to get an Angus. But if you're strapped on cash, I think it's a good option.
I'm with you there completely. And you look at him and I know Preston 720K. He showed us he has that bottom end capability too, where he can score a bit lower. We've seen Eli Katoa have very quiet games in the past too. Love Eli Katoa, but would I pay 100K more for Eli Katoa compared to Gus Crichton at this stage of the year? Probably not. I probably wouldn't be doing that. So Katoa was one for the buy cover. Preston was one for the buy cover. At this stage, you're looking at, all right, is Gus Crichton particularly different to those guys? I don't think so either. But my view on this is I'm probably going to wait a week on getting Gus Crichton. I've got a couple of capable guys in Preston and Kai Pierce-Paul who I can plug in. So I'll give him a week. I'll let him back up from Origin. They've got Egan Butcher on the bench who might steal a few minutes there. And in round 20, when we can run a bench, that's when I'll look really closely at Gus. I feel the same way, by the way, about Big Tino here as well. Massive break even for him. So his price is going down further from this. But for Tino, that sternum issue really slowed him down for a while. And what we've heard is that sternum issue is starting to clear up. So you'll see for sure like how he's feeling when he plays Origin. If he plays big minutes in Origin and he looks comfortable, then you'll be like, all right, cool. Yeah, it's probably time to go soon. Myself, I'm still leaning towards being a bit cautious and watching him play for the Titans backing up. They play very late in the round. So last game on Sunday, which means if he doesn't back up, he's hurt because it's 5 days later. So I think Big Tino here is a perfect option for round 20. But if you're desperate for a mid and you can't afford Isaiah Yo and somehow you can't afford Connor Watson just, then you could pull the trigger early. But really, I'm putting him on the radar for next week. I think he should be a part of most teams' plans.
Yeah, I think Tino 73 break even. You can easily wait a week. There's no. I think even last game after Origin backing up, he played reduced minutes. So I think he'll play a smaller amount of minutes this week as well. But I think he could be the buy of the week next week or very close to it. So
Yeah.
he's one to keep an eye on. I wouldn't rush him in. But look, by the way, Dylan Edwards, is he really only 540K? That's crazy to me.
I had to cram him in, bro. Like, because it doesn't make sense for our teams to get a wing fullback like him. But 540K. And we've seen him. I look at his stats in the past. Like, he's had those seasons where he's been that mid 50s guy, had plenty of seasons being a 50 guy. The next 4 games, really good fixtures as well, starting with Parramatta this week. So if you want a pod, like I know if he averaged, hypothetically, Biz, if he had one of his good years and he averaged 55, like his really good years, you'd take him in a heartbeat if you were guaranteed that. If it was a 50, which is more regular, you're saving cash, but you're losing about 7 points to Jacob Carraz. So that's where I sort of think, all right, you really got to believe that he's going to be red hot and the Panthers are going to be red hot in the run home. Short on cash, though, not a bad shout.
Look, I'm looking at his stats this year. Bit spotty through the middle periods, round 8, 9, 10, 36, 27, 32, and then 26 against the Eels. So definitely 4 scores below 36 or 36 or below. But last 2 scores, 68, 52, Panthers on the way up. Parramatta, Rabbits, Tigers, Gold Coast, Newcastle. Next
There it
5.
is. There it is.
Oh, that's 540k is a niggly price for sure. If I needed a wing fullback and he was playing this week, I think I'd take Dylan Edwards as a punt. But look, at this point in the season, it's tough. I'd rather look. It's hard to tell because how much of it is Penrith going backwards versus Dylan Edwards' regression versus how much upside do they have in this next 5 games where he could just bust out a 60 average, right, for 540k. It's all the options are on the table. Like all of these things could happen. So I don't know. Are you considering it at all? I had no idea actually. I'm glad you put this graphic up. I did not realize it was 540k. I thought it was in 600 marks.
No, he's been getting sheep, man. So
Yeah.
my one vague consideration on this is that, and it doesn't work for Carraz because he plays at the same time as Drinkwater, but Drinkwater plays against the Dogs, who are out for revenge after their loss last week, full strength against the Cowboys, who just don't seem to know how to play footy when it's anywhere within a month of origin. So Drinkwater could have one of his stinkwater sort of games. If that was to happen, I could maybe sit Drinkwater in the loophole spot. I only have 3 wing fullbacks this week because I've got the legend Tommy Turbo and 2 try hero Ruben Garrick in my reserves there. But I could potentially bring in Edwards if Drinkwater had a stinkwater sort of game. Like that's an option there. I don't think I would. I feel like it's a bit of a waste. He's carried a few injuries this year. I'd probably rather just spend up. But then if I did go Edwards as a keeper, I don't know. He just doesn't have that upper echelon potential. That's my issue there. Like his best possible outcome in my head is 55 average. I just don't see him going above that. So I probably couldn't bring myself to do it, but there's a little tiny voice in my head saying, go on, do it.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there's that voice in my head, but I probably won't. But Ben Hunt, he's more interesting.
This is
He's the
unhinged, bro.
voice in my head. The voice in my head could be saying, "Bye, Ben Hunt." I don't know, man. Like we've seen how good he is when he plays at hooker. He is a fantasy weapon. Like he comes almost like a Connor Watson type of hooker, right? And at 435k, I think you can definitely watch this week. The thing is, we don't know his minute split. He's come back from a long-term hamstring injury. It was hamstring, right? I think it was hamstring. And look, they've got Billy Walters on the bench. I don't think he sees more than 40, 50 minutes this week. But if he comes out there and he plays 60, 70 minutes at hooker, or the minutes are trending in that direction over the next few weeks, I think he becomes really interesting as a 17th, 18th man for the run home. Because, look, Ezra Mam has come back and he's playing really well. Broncos have looked a lot better with Ezra Mam at 6. So Ben Hunt is their number 9. Like, I think Ben Hunt is a very good number 9. And he's miles ahead of Billy Walters, Corey Pay, like all these guys. So if Hunt is playing big minutes at hooker, I think he becomes a very interesting shout.
Yeah, I'll give you some numbers here because I was looking at it earlier. 63 average playing at hooker. 63 average across, it's close to 80 minutes, 76 minutes. His average includes about 55 run meters a game. That average includes 2 tries in 11 games, which I think is unders for what he's going to do for the run home. So that PPM is fantastic. Now, if you extrapolate that PPM to one of the guys commented on the live, 50 minutes, you get about 41.5 points. So if it was a 50-minute roll and he was scoring 41.5, I would just be thinking, I'll wait for Talon de Silva. I'll just get Talon de Silva instead. Save for 200k. Get a guy who's not a keeper, but get the full cash out. Whereas if Ben Hunt is playing 70, 80 minutes, like you said, he's a keeper. Like he's just an outright keeper. So I think you can wait a week and see. The issue is Billy Walters won them that game last week against the Dogs. Like, he was instrumental in them winning, and Kevin Walters commentates their games, so he'll be in outrage if Billy Walters doesn't get on early enough. I'm sure they play the commentary in the coach's box, but I just reckon Ben Hunt. Like, if you're a team that started late, I always say this, but if you're a team that started late, you're low on cash, all that sort of thing. He's one of those guys you definitely take a specky on. But if you're a team that's loaded with cash, it's just the wrong time of year for it. That's the issue. So I'm going to wait a week and see. And heck, if he plays, let's say if he plays 50 minutes, Biz, and he takes 12 runs, I might buy him next week. Like, that actually might be enough for me, because that previous average only factors in 50 meters a game. So if there's a different play style here, then maybe we have that conversation.
The thing is, like, the strategy at this time of year is pretty simple. I think if he's not in your 17, he has to be close to base price, right? Like, what do you really do? If he's going to average 40 to 45, you're not playing him in your 17, and then you just got 450k sitting there for like no real reason when you've got a talent silver, like you said. So I would want to be comfortable that Ben Hunt is going to be a 50 to 55 guy that I can play each week before I commit to 435k. And it's the same argument you use for Dylan Edwards. Like, is he the upper echelon? Like, you need to be upper echelon to be worth a mid-range buy at this point of year. And Ben Hunt's only going to be the upper echelon if he gets that 65, 75 minutes. And he could be there. Like I said, we said if he gets the minutes, he'll be there. But I just think it's a bit of a rush to buy him this week, except for the conditions you mentioned. But if he comes out and he's plays 60 minutes this week, 70 minutes next week, I'm buying him. Shortly thereafter.
Yeah, Broncos pack too. I will shout out the stats we talked about. They were 2020, which it might hurt you to hear is 5 years ago. So, that's a long time in footy terms, and there's a lot of physicality at hooker that comes with the position too. Anyway, let's turn into our holds and sells, and the holds list is just my team basically. So we got Nico Hines here first. I roasted him a bit at the start, but I think with Nico Hines at 595k, maybe this is, like you said, a bit of a copium. Maybe there's a bit of, sunk cost fallacy, all that sort of thing. I personally think a healthy amount of sunk cost fallacy is a good way to play fantasy, though. Because if you don't double down on your own opinions when they're tested, you'll never win anything in fantasy. Like, you've got to kind of back yourself a bit. And with Nico Hines, there's just this little part of me that thinks, there's 20 minutes of every game where he looks like he's on and he racks up 40 points. And then the rest of the game, nothing really happens. So I think Cronulla, they're either going to collapse as a team and they're going to descend into total irrelevance, or we're going to see a Nico Hines run. He's already in my team. He's 595k. I'm going to bet on the Nico Hines run, because the alternative there is I move him on and I jump to Isaiah Katoa. Let's say, for example, the one game Katoa played with Sean O'Sullivan this year, Sauce kicked the ball nearly 300 meters, which is 300 more than Cody Nikorima. So I think Katoa is going to face a little bit of a drop-off this week. I think Hines could potentially out-average Katoa over this period. I'm not saying he will, but I think there's a possibility it happens. So I know, I've just got a feeling he might pop off, and I'm willing to hold that little speculator there and take the pain if it doesn't work out.
Look, Hines playing poorly, still averaging 52. Is it really worth upgrading? The options are, like you said, Katoa is averaging 58, assuming everyone has cleared already. The options are Katoa 58, who I think definitely takes a cut with Sean O'Sullivan. Sean O'Sullivan is a dominant kick meter. He's a bit of a ball hog. He loves kicking the ball himself. Katoa's been taking all the ball playing on kick meters, and so definitely a hit to Katoa there. But the next options, Sharp, injured. Metcalf, injured. Hastings, who knows how long he's going to be there. He's 54 average. Fogarty, not worth a trade up. And then it's like
Also
Jerome
not playing
Hughes,
this week.
also not playing this week. And then Hughes averaging 47 this year. Do you really want to trade Hines to Hughes on the logic that, they've had a depressed season and they're going to bust out at the end? Like, that could happen to Hines as well. So there's really no one to trade him to, unless you really want to go for that specky option and, I don't know, play like a Galvin or a Burden for the run home with their fixtures, which honestly, like Galvin at his price with the next four you mentioned, next 4 or 5, like it could be a good shout. But I think if he started, if he can't. But the thing is, look, Nico Hines at 595k, just hold him. Easy one.
Yeah, it's all upside. He's not going to go, because what's he priced at, like a 44?
Yeah,
Like, there's no way he drops
or
down.
something.
Yeah, he's not dropping down from here. I don't know. I just think you got other guys you can sell that don't have the upside of Nico Hines. And you've already lost out on Nico Hines so far. You might as well try and get some wins back. Also, his last score was like 57. So
54 and 56 last two games. Yeah.
downdated, yeah. So he's doing all right. He's doing all right. I'm also holding Cam Munster, by the way, in case anyone wants to know. He's staying in my side 100%. Kai Pierce-Paul, 692K. A couple of lower scoring games for him recently. That last game, though, he scored a 50. I think he had like 165 run meters. It was like round 17. So I look at that and I just go, you know what? If my back row is running the ball 165 meters, and if you've got, Kalen Ponga, obviously out of the picture, Fletcher Sharp out of the picture, those two are big ball runners there. So we're going to see the back rowers getting plenty of ball. Now, I don't know if it's going to be better for them in attack. I think Newcastle's attack, it can't get worse than it was. But I do see Kai Pierce-Paul getting plenty of ball, plenty of short balls here. I think he'll be fed. So I just think he could potentially be that keeper. And I think you give it a week to see what the play style here is with two more traditional halves at the Knights.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the edge position this year is a bit of specky. Like we've seen heaps of players go well and some players go poorly. It's just about. I think Kai Pierce-Paul has been one of the best edges this year, and he could get more attacking options given that Newcastle's best two attacking players are out. Jaden Bradley, though, I don't know. This is like a more contentious one. I think they've shown that Brayley is not their number 9. He had a good couple of weeks there, but Crossland's back there this week. Jaden Brayley's obviously leaving for the Raiders next year, so not in their long-term plans. I don't think Knights really have any realistic shot of being relevant this year, given their injuries. And so, I don't know, would they decrease his minutes? I think you can hold and see if it's a late change, but I think Brayley's close to a sell than a hold myself, which is a shame. I was very close to buying Brayley. Luckily, I just didn't do it. But
Same.
yeah,
Scary though.
it was scary how close I was to buying him. I think you got a couple of good scores out of him in 100K, so it's not the end of the world. It's
So
definitely
he's better than Jack Bird then, or
yeah, better than Jack Bird. So Jack Bird by far and away is the worst pick I've done this year. I made some bad ones.
mate, like
I
100
think
people in the top 1,000 got stuck with him. Jack Bird, like you're not alone there. I just will say Brayley break even's close to 0. That's the only reason he's on the hold list. You
yeah,
might as well hold and hope because if he got the starting spot again, like there were multiple injuries, whatever it is, he's a 50 average at 433K. It's basically what we're talking about for Ben Hunt. Like you just
yeah.
have that guy, so you might as well just have those sticky fingers and hold on to him a little bit longer. Tommy Turbo, what's your thoughts here? Because you were giving a look at the fixtures before and you had some interesting ideas. What do you see him doing across the run home for our fantasy sides?
I actually think he's more of a matchup-proof player at center, and Seabold's come out and said it's pretty much a permanent move now. Look, last 4 games, I think he averages 49 odd. So if you bought him for the 3 major buy rounds, like you're stoked. And I know we're both Turbo owners, so thank you, Turbo. I think, look, you definitely hold him. His next few fixtures are terrible. I think he's got 4 of the top 5 teams. I mean, I'm just going to quickly read them out to you while I get that up. Look, he should get dual position, Longy. I know you're going to lead the protest if he doesn't. But you never know with
Yeah.
fantasy NRL. But look, next 5 fixtures: Melbourne, not great; Bulldogs, not great; Roosters, not great but okay; and then Raiders. So 3 of the top 4 teams in the next 4 games, and then it eases up with Tigers, Dolphins, Dragons. So look, in saying all that, I think at the center position, he's much less reliant on his last 2 games at center: 15 tackles and 28 tackles. You love to see that for an attacking guy who gets in there and makes his tackles. So averaging 20 plus tackles a game in his 2 games there. So I think he at 459K, he's still a hold for me, for sure. And he look, I know I'm just contradicting myself by saying if he's not in your 17, you want almost base price. But Tommy Turbo, the way he's playing, could be looped into your 17 most weeks. So if he's getting 49, 50, 60 when he's scoring tries, you would put him in your 17. So it's a tricky one and a dual position coverage. He's a great 18th man for mine. So I'll be holding him. But I can understand why you'd want to bank 200K out of him. But just hold it. Just hold it.
His last score under 40 was round 10, I think. So I'm with you there completely. until he shows us that he's not that guy. Because history also suggests that he's a good scorer at center. Like the historical numbers are even better than what we've seen. So we could see him be really good down the stretch. He's making cash as well. The wing fullback spot is a bit dicey. You can use him as a loophole this week. I think the case you've made though, and what you've described there with the fixtures they've got coming up, probably makes Ruben Garrick a sell because Ruben Garrick has been very reliant on tries on the wing. He relies on goal kicking. There's not going to be too much of that in his next couple of games. So I think he's a bit less base happy as a winger. And just like as you were sort of talking that out, I'm starting to think maybe I sell Ruben Garrick.
Yeah, I think Garrick's at that awkward price, and
Mm.
but you're not going to use him as much as Turbo. I think look, Turbo making 28 tackles from center. That's big. That's a big deal.
Healing.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like a guy
So
that's
popping up
real,
both sides. Like,
yeah, like a guy that is an attacking player backing you up with 28 tackles. That gives me Fletcher Sharp vibes. Like you got attacking upside, but like a very solid defensive base as well. So I like it.
yeah, and if they get desperate, maybe he gets more ball. Then Hugo Saval is the last one here. A good break even for him. Match up against the Dragons. That's appealing. The downside for Hugo Savala is obviously he loses Sandon Smith as his halves partner, bring in Sam Walker. Sam Walker is that sort of 250 to 300 kick meters game guy. So you would expect there's about a 50-50 split here. The counter to that is that if they're getting ready for Cherry Evans next year, then you'd think Hugo Savala will keep playing the Cherry Evans role and Sam Walker will play the six role. I don't know if the Roosters are going to play it like that, though. When he came back in reserve grade, he had 180 kick meters in a half a footy. So it definitely wasn't like that in reserve grade. I don't know. I think you hold on to him. He's got the Dragons this week. Maybe you sell him. The more I think, like he's on the bottom of the list. The more I think about it, the more I think I might sell him.
I
You
mean,
have
you
to
can
start
almost
him.
move him to Watson in one trade, almost, right?
Yeah.
It's tricky because he could score 50 plus against the Dragons without many kick meters this week, just because one, attacking game, and two, he makes his tackles as well, right? So base stats are generally pretty good. He could run the ball more with Sam Walker. So look, if you've got Cleary and Hines and you're not playing Savala, I'd trade him. But if you're playing Savala, then it's or a Cleary doesn't back up from Origin or something. I think you hold him, but you've got Munster as well, so you're pretty stocked with halves. So I'd personally be just sacrificing maybe a bit of cash there and moving Savala on to a different position if needed, because I think halves is an easier position to fill.
What if
Like for
we though?
example,
Because I don't have Cleary right now, right? So what if we got word Munster wasn't backing up? Let's say someone's in a position where they've got one half playing. They don't want to run Lake and King Tonga this week. I also don't recommend running Latu Finu. By the way, I think even if you can avoid that, last week's score was great. It was a career game for 60 points. I don't see it replicating here against the Warriors. So avoid playing those guys. And if that means you have to sell Savala. That's where I'm sort of thinking about this. Like, if I get word Cleary is backing up, I probably move to Hugo Savala to Cleary this week. I'm probably thinking about that. Maybe I move Ruben Garrick instead. I'm tossing up a few ideas. I think it depends on your team, right? But in a perfect world, you'd sell him next week instead. You see what the roles are with Sam Walker. Because the alternative is that maybe the Roosters attack just wakes up with Sam Walker in the team and they're electric. And Hugo Savala pumps out big numbers, and Sam Walker doesn't do a lot of kicking. He plays that six role like next year. Maybe that happens. You don't know. Maybe he goal kicks as well. Maybe he takes the goal kicking off Sam Walker. Unlikely, but Sam Walker's coming back from a lower leg injury, I think it was. He's got the knee as well. There's a good chance, a small chance that Hugo Savala's the goal kicker. If he's the goal kicker at the Roosters and they are electric down the stretch, all of a sudden he's good again. That's where I just think you want to give him this week. Just see how it pans out. It doesn't cost you any trades. It just costs you a little bit of something, an alternative this week. So that's where I'm leaning towards him as a hold, but I am open to selling him if you want to.
yeah. Look, I think we did a very detailed Savala with Sam Walker analysis in round 14 before
Mm.
Sam Walker broke his thumb. So if you want more discussion on Savala with Sam Walker, I suggest you go back in time and watch that episode. But
Yeah.
yeah, look, I agree with what you said. I'm not a Savala owner, so luckily I don't have a headache because it's a tricky one.
Yeah, and now the sells. This is pretty straightforward here. Jackson Purdue. I'm going to pump through, and then I want your comments on whichever ones you want to talk about, man. But Jackson Purdue, 406K. He's done his job, and then he stopped doing his job for us at the end and dropped a metric ton of cash. It's crushing to me that he is cheaper than Simi Sasangi when I'm selling him. That really hurts me. I thought that matchup against the Titans would be better. I thought that game against the Storm where they scored a bunch of points and he scored a try, you might crack 30, but he just sort of forgot how to score fantasy points. So you sell him at this point and you cry about it and you love watching him anyway. Jazz Tavanga, it's been a downward slide at the end here. The minutes haven't been as good. Playing at hooker, time to move on. Just absolutely time to move on. And Connor Watson is the perfect replacement there for 140k more, which is like you could go Laken King Tongia and Jazz Tavanga to Connor Watson and Talon De Silva without denting your bank. Yeah, prime trades. Simi Sasangi, you don't have to rush this one, but if Hudson Young gets through Origin unscathed, Simi Sasangi will be fantasy irrelevant unless Hosking moved back to the middle for some reason. So you could wait a week if you want, but I'm pretty happy to sell him at this stage. King Tongia, his break even sort of gone the wrong way. He's done his job, by the way. I see a lot of people frustrated with him. He's made you 150k, maybe 120k if you're a bit late to get on. You know, he's done his job. He scored through the bye period. He's been fine. He's had a few decent games in there. He's made enough money. Like if you bought him for 320k, it's kind of on you because we saw what he was doing, and it was just a failed buy. And speaking of failed buys, I'll throw this one to you. Jack Bird, 337k. You said you were going to sing a song earlier. I feel like you've got a few. We've done a few road trips where you've pulled out a few Disney sort of sing-alongs, mate. So I'm sure you've got something for us here, man. It's already
I
gone
can't.
red.
I can't think of any sad enough songs to sing for this trade. If you've got one, let me know. But it's a hard pill to swallow because I thought I knew he was in injury cloud. Like the chance of him not playing last week, like it's fair enough. I traded Lawson to him, so either way, it was a red dot. The hope was that if Jack Bird doesn't play, he's back next week. He is back this week, but he's on the bench for Tony Sukkar. So, come on. I thought he played pretty well at playing edge when he started.
I was going to say, Sukkar, by the way, had 27 run meters last week. So
I'm going to try and I think for me, I'm not rushing to Talon Silver with the high break even. I think Bird just sits there for me, and I'll just move him to De Silva if he stays on the bench. Like you said, sunk cost, right? Like I've used a trade on him. If I trade him out the next week without using him, like so be it. Okay, either way, it's better than just holding on to him as he stinks it up as a bench player. So I think Bird to Talon De Silva could be an option for me. And if that's the case, like it's a wasted trade. What can you do? But I've been pretty good with trades. I think I've got 5 or 6 left, and +8 next week as well. So look, it's not a great way to end the show. It's not a great way to end.
I'm not ending on this, man. I've got something better.
I'm not ending this. Oh yeah, I'll leave it to you. But a couple of other guys we didn't talk about in hold and sell. A lot of the Raiders and Rabbits guys, like Aitken. If you've held him through, you can hold him. You're definitely holding a Tallis Duncan. Like you talked about Jazz Tavanga being the king of getting you through the buys. Mate, Tallis Duncan has been the god of getting me through the buys. Like without him, I'd be ranked like 50,000 right now, and he's got a break even of 2 or something. So even if he goes back to the mid-40s profile, you wait and see a week. Same with Hosking. He's been really good last 2 weeks. I think 70-plus and a 60-plus score. He's finally getting his groove, and he's playing Parramatta next week, who have edges that can't defend whatsoever. So I think he's a great shout. But look, I'm excited for the run home, Longy. Like it's it. This is like all guns blazing. Put your back into it, kind of thing. Like firepower. Aim for 1,000+ points every week. I need a big finish, to be honest. After last week, I played 10 players last week. I was intentional. I didn't want to bring in players that wouldn't be in my final 17 or cash outs, except Jack Bird. I hate you, Jack Bird. But look, I'm prime. I think I have like 300.
Should have gone Tristan Hope, mate.
I should have. We hyped it up, but actually, the thing with Tristan Hope is named to the bench this week, so you can't use him as a red dot.
It's actually not great. He played too well. He played too well, man. Yeah. He was so good in that game.
He was really good. But look, I think all guns blazing for the end of the year. I think I'm well placed. I can bring in 3 or 4 keepers this week. Like if I really wanted to, I could bring in Yo, Watson, Angus, and Latino this week. I've got cash, but I probably won't. I'll be a bit smarter. But yeah, Longy, how are you feeling? You feeling good?
I'm okay, man. I'm okay. But what I wanted to finish on was Brendan Piakura. So obviously we're trying to get him to 500k to graduate from the show. I'm going to add a little slide next week with a weekly tracker of him getting to 500k. Now, it's been a bit of a downward slide. He's at about 387K right now. So he's fallen away. He's got the Titans this week. I think it's going to be a big attacking game for Pierre Kura. So I'm backing him to step back up and sort of show Billy Slater why he should have been in Origin this year.
Mate, not just that, match-winning try last week. Great line. Like,
Yeah.
I love it. Go, boy.
He was good. He was good in that game, just didn't score anything for fantasy.
Yeah.
Viz, look, appreciate you jumping on, man. There's a lot to talk about this week. Guys, as always, all this advice is so conditional on how your team looks. Like you said, with guys like Aitken, Hosking, all that, you just got to look at your team and think, all right, do they help me? Do they help me next week? Does the cash help me? All that sort of thing. Map it out, figure it out, and jump on you guys. So cheers, Biz. Appreciate you, mate. And good luck this week, everyone. Also, enjoy your Origin.